Welcome to my final project, making keyguards a key element in 3D printing. My name is Lauren Furr, and I am a high school special education teacher for students with physical and cognitive complex needs. I have been a special education teacher for 15 years, and I started the assistive technology program at Bowling Green just this past January. You are welcome to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I have a teaching a professional account, and I would love for you to follow me so that I in turn can follow you. When I first saw the final project assignment, I was a little intimidated because I could not think of something that I wanted to implement specifically. And so a question I asked myself was, what can I do to help students become more confident and purposeful communicators? This is really important to me because the students in my classroom are complex learners and do have communication deficits. And I want them to become more confident and purposeful through their communication. So I started brainstorming, okay, how can I help my students become more purposeful with what they'd like to say and confident with initiating conversations or even answering questions? I also want my students to communicate with less errors on their AAC device, as well as have some visual support and scan on their devices. So from here, I thought, let's do keyguards. Keyguards are something that I use within my classroom. My speech pathologist has introduced them to me, and I found much success with them for AAC devices. And according to vokeswitch.org, individuals with limited muscle strength and or control may find a keyguard helpful in pointing and or identifying the different components of a tablet, which would make it more reliable. Okay, so how do I help my students? Like right now, I order the keyguards off of Etsy, but how can I help my students become more confident and more purposeful with less errors and not have such an expense for my district? I decided to try out our 3D printer. So my speech pathologist and I last fall wrote a mini grant through our district for a 3D printer and won. We received our 3D printer in the spring. So we kind of put our heads together and thought, okay, if we learn our 3D printer as well as the software to create the keyguards, why can't we print our own keyguards and save money, in addition to making it more customizable for our students and in turn making them more confident and more purposeful through their communication. So my action plan consisted of our 3D printer, learning the software and the websites, and then printing. Under our 3D printer, as I had stated earlier, it was funded through a grant that was written through my speech pathologist and myself. And then we recruited our district's technology team to help us build the 3D printer, the actual physical component of it. From there, we learned and explored thingiverse.com. We researched on vokeswitch.org, and we also learned and practiced on OpenSCAD. And lastly, the actual printing component would consist of the filament. So what color do we need? What size? How do we load it? We need a USB drive so we can save the keyguard from the OpenSCAD program. and then to wait and watch the magic happen. Okay, so more specifically with our websites, on Thingiverse, there are different downloads that you can do for the Keyguard. And so I just took a couple screenshots that might help if any of you are interested in dabbling in our 3D printing. You would like to download the Keyguard data form, the padding and bar size, and then the Keyguard SCAD. And then if you would like to continue to research your project, I highly encourage you to go to folkswitch.org, and then kind of on the drop down menu find devices, customizable 3D printable Keyguard for grid-based freeform and hybrid AAC apps and tablets. Okay, here you're going to see a lot of videos, a lot of frequently asked questions. You're going to see Ken Heckworth, and he also presented at Closing the Gap on the printing of on a 3D printer of Keyguards. Okay, so specifically with the software on OpenSCAD, this was a little tricky. We struggled with this for a little bit. I say we as in my speech pathologist and myself. When you open the program, you need to identify if you're using an iPad or a tablet that's being used for the AAC device. You need to make sure you take the measurements. More specifically, make sure that you're including the case, if a case is being used, as well as maybe like the glass protector. Like my students have the otter boxes, and then they also have like the Gorilla Glass to make sure that it doesn't break if it was dropped. That's important to keep on there when you're doing your measurements. And then the customizer. So how many columns do you need? How many rows? What do you want the rail width to be? The height, the shape. This is all individualized based on the person who's using the AAC device. Are you using LAMP, or are you using Touch Chat? Are you using the 20-word power or 60-word power? The customization is endless and wonderful. Okay, so I did all of that. So let's do this. I documented my experience with the 3D printer and through some videos and some photos. Rise, temperature, rise. Okay, the bed is heated up, so now we're just waiting for the nozzle to heat up. We're getting ready. I then encountered my first printing problem.
Play.
All right, we just have to reload the filament. Bear with me. Okay, that's good. Okay, we had a little snap here. The filament tube was not properly connected, and then it got clogged. So we are restarting this. I YouTubed a link to help me figure out how to unclog this, and now she is warming up again, and fingers crossed, this Keyguard is going to start printing soon. Okay, so we're going to try this again after I had the filament loaded. Here we go. Oh my gosh. Here is a photo of the beginning of the printing. And then, hours had gone by and it was time for me to go home. I'm currently teaching extended school year for the summer, and our building was closing. So I had to pause print. This was day 1. Moving on to day 2. Okay, We're on day 2 now. I had to hit pause so that I could go home, and now my hope is that we can hit resume and she will resume printing. Resume. Yes. From here, I kind of took pictures of the status as we were going along. So I started at 7:45 a.m. By 11:25, we were making progress, still printing at 1 o'clock. And then again, summer school had ended, building was closing, so I had to pause one more time before my key guard was finished printing. Day 3. Day 3. Here we go. Resume prints. Yes. Hopefully it's done today. From there, I continued to track our progress. So at 8:30, we were still printing. 10:17, ta-da! We were almost done. And then by 12:45, we were finished. And was my day of summer school. So from here, we put the key guards right on the devices for some of my students. The one in the red is the one that I printed for one of my kiddos who is autistic and uses AAC as a form of communication. And the key guard on the right was printed by my speech pathologist who used a clear filament. I thought this was really cool because it doesn't necessarily limit your vision of seeing all of the icons. My references for completing this project included VokeSwitch. I definitely utilized some YouTube videos, and then of course Thingiverse for the template. Thank you so very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at me on Instagram or Twitter. You can email me at my school account. I was very pleased with this project. I'm glad that it forced me to kind of step out of my comfort zone and dabble with the 3D printer. I definitely will be continuing to play with my 3D printer and explore. Our next project will be printing out core words for our visually impaired students. Thanks so much.